I think if I could talk to my teenager, I would say to my teenager, go and learn how to master your mind now. Don't wait until many, many, many years have passed and you've had a lot of disappointments and you've had a lot of challenges. Those challenges will disappear. Go learn now. Learn how to master your mind now.
So, welcome to Allow Yourself podcast. Here we let go of labels and allow all our understandings to flow. No matter your gender, your religion, your politics, you belong here in this conversation. Because when we allow ourselves to listen, we grow. Listen even if you don't agree what you're listening, but at least you open that door to reflection and to see other points of view. And today we have an amazing guest from the other side of the world in Australia, I'm in Costa Rica, as you know, Rik Schnabel. And before I introduce him, I really like one sentence that I read about Rik. It's NLP trainer and brain untrainer. So here we learn how to untrain our brain before we learn to train it. So Rik Schnabel is in Australia leading authority on untraining the brain and is an author, teacher, and coach. He helps business owners align their mindset with their mission to attain the audacious vision. With over 39,000 transformational hours over 2 decades, he's an internationally recognized and nationally accredited master trainer in NLP, life coaching, public speaking, and training the trainers. Often called the Australian Tony Robbins, Rik helps people rewire their thinking. His breakthrough work has earned him the nickname the Brain Untrainer, a title he gained after helping a high-profile client reverse the symptoms of multiple sclerosis in 2004. And when it comes to personal development, coaching, and communication mastery, there is one name that consistently rises to the top in Australia, Rik Schnabel. So here we have a Rik, and welcome with major honors.
Thank you very much, Beatrice, and thank you for being so warm and welcoming. It's always a delight to come on to a program like yours with such a beautiful energy. So thank you.
And the first question I usually ask is, when you hear the expression allow yourself, what comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is, it's almost like the music that you play just before we get started, which is a beautiful balance, that piano from Amelie. It's when you're in your natural frequency, almost like a child. We have this pattern, and psychologists call it an inhibitive habit pattern that happens when we keep hearing the word can't. I can't, I can't, I can't. But before that, as children, where I can do anything. I can jump off the cliff, I can fly, I can pull the tablecloth and nothing's going to fall over. And we think that anything is possible. But as we grow up, we get conditioned. There's lots and lots of conditionings that really, really happen. And I think when we find our flow and we get out of our conditioning, anything is possible. We can find the love of our lives. We can create a very healthy body. We can create a very prosperous business. We can do anything. We really, really can. But as we get older, sometimes we start putting all these conditions all over us and saying the things like, I can't.
Oh, yes, that's completely true. How we listen, we hear a lot when we are kids. you cannot do it. That's not for you. This is for your sister or for your cousin. And are you crazy doing that, flying? And that's when you will really start being trained to what's your limitation, right? It's like we we are born into a family that has already their structure and their limits. So they would want to put that on us so we can adapt to fit in to the family that we are born. But it's very hard to get that on our awareness. We need to work on it. So how do you work on it?
It's a really good question because you're so right. It's a little bit like if I can recount a very personal story. I remember I had a job in Melbourne, Australia, and I just had this intuition that I had to get out of Australia and try something different, try something new. And I had a job, I was an advertising manager. And I can remember when I told my parents that I was going to leave my job, go 3,000 kilometers to the other part of Australia, which I'd never been to, knew no one, and I was going to start a business over there. You know, they were just so distressed. They were saying to me, you can't do this. Why give up such a good job for uncertainty and not knowing what you're going to do? And I said, look, I understand this, but this is what you were suggesting earlier. People project their fear onto you, and there was a lot of that. But I find that it's the very first point, I think, to untrain your brain is, first of all, to desire. You've really got to want something. And something that I discovered through a lot of my deep level research, I eventually got to a point where I'd been concentrating a lot of my work on this brain, the head brain. But we were denying very much the heart brain, which, by the way, they only discovered in 1985 that we actually had a heart brain, and then the gut brain. So the thing that you've got to be able to do as a first step to actually get what you want is there's got to be some sort of level of desire. That's the starting point. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday who, for 20 years of his life, he's been really struggling. He said, I have no friends, I have no wealth, and even my health is starting to decline now. And I said to him, I said, look, this is what your problem is. Your problem is your number one value is money, but there's no purpose underneath it. So it's empty, it's soulless. And that's what you're feeling right now. You're feeling very soulless. And he said, what do I do? How do I get out of here? And I said, what do you want? And he said, I don't know. I don't know what I want. I said, well, that's the very start point. So I said to him, this weekend, just sit down, give yourself half a day, or even dedicate a whole day for this, and sit down and don't focus on your head brain. Focus on your heart brain, because your heart brain is very much your compass. It's your values and your compass and compassion. That's what your heart brain is. It wants the best for you. It really does. And so if as the sayings go, if you listen to your heart, you'll have a great life. If you listen to your head, you'll probably have a very confused life. So the heart is very much about the compass, its compassion, its values, its purpose, and start there. The next thing that it's going to do, once you work out what it is that you want, it's going to go to the head brain. And the head brain is then going to say, okay, so what are we going to do to make this happen? And it'll start thinking about strategies. And it'll give us a list, and it'll give us lots of options. And this is, of course, where a lot of confusion comes in. So then what we've got to do is we've then got to rely on the gut brain to make the decision as to which strategy is going to be the first strategy to start with. What's the first step? And if you think about it, the gut brain, while the head brain's all strategy and it's creativity and it can go off in all sorts of directions, the heart is very centered and direct. The gut is about the next step. Your gut will not allow you to move forward unless it's convinced that it's going to be able to eat tomorrow. So your gut brain, and this is why people get so frustrated. It's like their heart wants something or their head thinks they want something, but their gut is not on board. So if the gut is not on board, what we start getting, oh, my frequency is dropping, my energy is dropping because I'm thinking of all the things that I need to do, want to do, but can't do. And all my programs and all my conditioning, my, inhibitive habit pattern, I can't kicks in. So what do? The gut says, I feel terrible right now. So we go and we eat rubbish. We get that immediate, a dopamine hit and we get some rubbish or we doom scroll or we do something like that. And so
Sugar.
sugar, yeah, absolutely. Sugars, fats, all of those sorts of things. I'm on day 7 of a cleanse at the moment, which we do about 2, 3 times a year. And I find that whenever I do this particular cleanse, I get so clear, so really clear. And we don't realize what food actually does to not only our body, but our brain and our heart brain and our thinking as well. So, the first real step is to desire. That's really what's important. And the brain untraining part is often really complicated. And it's complicated in that it's really hard to do yourself. A lot of people say, you've been coaching for 24 years, you've been teaching coaches for about 21 years now. And so, do you have a coach? And I go, actually, I have 2 coaches. I have a coach to help me with my own sense of self and business and all of that. But I also have a spiritual coach. And the spiritual coach keeps me on path and, keeps me to my vision for humanity. Whereas my other coach helps me with the structure and the emotions. And because that's called metacognition. When we have problems, it's sometimes really difficult to know what is the condition that is stopping us achieving our goals and perpetuating the problem. And I'd love to give you an example of this because that's a very complicated piece. But if we look at this in a very case history, for example, there was a lady that I was working with, and she said to me, I so want to become a millionaire. I so want to become a millionaire. And I said, look, wanting to be a millionaire is great, fantastic. There's a lot of good that you can do as a millionaire. But why? Why do you want to be a millionaire? And most people just want to be a millionaire so they can pay off their house and, or be debt free, that idea, or
Oh
just so
yes,
that,
we've been trained that everything is solved when we have money. Is if
yeah,
we achieve the
absolutely.
money, you have no problems. And if you don't know then why, and you don't know how to structure and how to really deal with it, is bigger problem than without money. No, it's like Steve Harvey says, I've been in both extremes. No, being poor and being very rich, and being poor is very hard and being rich is very hard, but I prefer the heart of the rich to the heart of the poor. Right?
Yeah.
So but exactly as you say, it's like, what for? No, what's the purpose? I had I wanted to share with you the experience of one time that I went to give a talk to some girl mothers, and I start talking about the problems that I had, the challenges that I have with court, and that I lost everything, and even that I have my house and I have a car and I have everything. And they were just like with the eyes wide open, saying, oh, thank you, because we thought the people that have a house and a car and money in the bank, everything is solved. Yeah, the Maslow pyramid, right? So
Hierarchy, yeah.
yeah, hierarchy. So yes, you said that, but we have been trained a lot about money is the solution, and to give the whole power to money that can even destroy us. Um, or when we have it or we don't have it, the power that we give away to the money. And I like the what you say about your three brains, right? What the mind says, what then the it's your head brain, then your heart brain, compassion and values and direction and purpose, and the gut brain, that is what's your next step to be sure that what you're doing is the correct thing. And it goes back to what how we started the conversation. I think is like, what did you stop doing when you were a child that you really enjoyed, that you felt that you can do anything?
Mm.
So going back there. So
Yeah, well, I think the thing is that, really it very much comes down to purpose, I think. Like we've been trained to chase our tail. And marketing and advertising and news and society have created this idea that, it's all about getting rich. And that really isn't the purpose of life. I have worked with so many people that are, in fact, quite rich. And their biggest problem is they're saying to me, Rik, I feel like my life is empty. A gentleman I was talking to the other day who's 75 years old, and I said to him, what are we working on? What do you want me to help you to achieve? And he said, Rik, I feel lonely and I feel empty. And I said to him, I said, I'm guessing financially you're good. And he said, well, actually, I'm quite wealthy. And I said, has your focus for most of your life been about becoming wealthy? And he said, yes. And I said, but why? Why did you want to become wealthy? And he said, to have financial freedom. And the moment I hear that phrase, I think to myself, you've been conditioned. You've been conditioned for that. And the truth is, the large majority of people on earth will never be financially free unless they let go of their love of money. That's when you become financially free, when you let go of your love of money. And I know, personally, I remember there was a 2012 in my life. I was doing lots of talks. I was in a movie. I had lots of books. I was on radio, media, and stuff like that. And people were coming up to me and saying, "Oh my God, you're amazing. You're incredible." I started to believe a lot of this. And I remember my financial guy. He said, "Oh, the next thing we'll be getting for you is your own Learjet." And it was at this point that I thought this is getting ridiculous, and I decided that's it. I'm no longer going to wear the suits. I'm no longer going to wear gold watches. I'm no longer going to buy prestigious cars. I'm no longer even going to talk about money like I have been, because so many people came to me to increase their wealth. That lady that said she wanted to be a multimillionaire is now a multimillionaire. And our next coaching was really about the purpose piece, because so many people, if they keep chasing money, will die with a hole in their soul. Because
yeah,
they'll just keep, when is money enough? Like you look at, Bill Gates, and you look at, Buffett and others, and you think, when
when
is
enough
enough?
is enough. Yeah, when
Yeah,
enough is enough. Yeah.
because what What the chasing of money really does is it has us chasing an invisible concept. Printed paper, it once was. Now it's just digits on computer. What are we really chasing?
Now we don't even feel it.
That's right.
Before we counted, and we know how much we had and how much we can
Yeah.
spend, and we felt that it was tangible. Now it's not even that.
Yeah, exactly. Someone said to me the other day, they said, "Why aren't you retired?" And, I'm now 64 years old. And they said, why aren't you retired? And I said, look, the choice I made when I started Life Beyond Limits, 24 years ago, was I was doing it for purpose. I was doing it because I was sad, because so many people were sad and so many people were hurt and so many people were angry and frustrated and all of these sorts of things. And I thought, guys, the answer is simple. You just have to get into the conditioning and change the conditioning, and you'll change your perspective. And so I said to this person, I said, I'm probably never going to retire, because if I stop working, the thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to coach people. I'm going to want to write books. I'm going to want to teach people. I'm going to want to do talks, which is everything that I do now. So there really is no point in retiring. And sure, money, I'm definitely not a billionaire. And the thing is, nor do I want to be. You know, I would want to be a billionaire if my purpose and my cause needed that money to do the purpose. But there's no purpose to do that at that level. I can do everything I need to do with the money I have.
And
So,
isn't that to be a millionaire, when you can do whatever you want at the time that you have, with the people that you're here
yeah,
teaching? Isn't that really to be rich, just to help somebody see change in their face and their life, and not more tension in their face,
yeah,
and just that? I think that's the real wealth, let's say. I was listening one of these days at Louise Hay talking about prosperity, that one of the 90s, the first workshops that she had, and she says you can be very prosperous in money but very poor in time, or very poor with friends, or very poor with compassion. And is you can be so poor that you only have money, no, that, and the rest is emptiness. So um, I'm not saying the money is not important. Yes, it's important because we live in this plane, and we use money to uh, get opportunities and expand the possibilities that we have. But if we, as you say, are in love with money, and money dictates our life, that's when we become miserable, right?
yeah.
Is there's the purpose of money by itself is not a purpose. That's chasing, as you call it. I like that word. So, what is that help people achieve what they want to achieve and they feel that they cannot achieve?
The thing, if we look at 101 goal setting, it's really three parts. It's dream, design how you're going to get there, and do it. Do the first task. Just get on with it. So that typically is as simplistic as you can take goal setting. I know there's SMART goals in NLP. There's 7 keys to a successful outcome. There's 5 principles for success. There's so many different models, and they're all valuable. But the thing that we have to ask is, if it is to dream, design, and do, then if I can't do, then why? What is the reason that I can't do? So, for example, there was a doctor who came to see me a while back, and her dream was to get up on a stage. She designed her talk and what she'd like to talk about, but she just couldn't do it. And so I'm usually coming in at the piece that is between those two pieces, the design and the do.
The in between that
Because
I called.
yeah,
I call it the in between. Yeah.
the in between, totally. And so I then have to work out why can't she get up and talk to strangers? And I remember working with her in a session and we were looking for the answer, trying to find out what it was. And I've got a particular process that I, use. I've got lots of tools, of course, as you do over the years, but one particular tool is really, really helpful. It's a closed eye process. And what it does is it creates what's called a disassociation pattern. So when you close your eyes and you imagine yourself rising up above now, you disassociate from your current emotions. So you can start to get into a different realm. In a spiritual sense, we can sometimes call that the higher fourth dimension. And you get out of anger, you get out of sadness, guilt, blame, shame, all of those sorts of things, and you rise up above and you have a look and ask yourself a very honest question. What decision did I make about myself in the past that caused me to fear getting up? Because we worked out it was fear. And so we went back and she went back to her childhood and, she came from a good home, but a very protective home. And something that she was told with repetition as a child was don't talk to strangers. Don't talk to strangers. Don't ever get into a stranger's car. Don't talk to strangers. Don't talk to strangers. Don't ever get in a stranger's car. And with repetition, that starts building a program. Now, that particular advice, although it might be helpful for children to keep them safe, the thing that we've also got to do, I think we teach our children fear. We also need to teach our children courage. And she wasn't. So what she was literally doing is she wanted to get up in front of an audience, but all of those people are strangers. And so this fear, she said she could feel her heart really beating wildly when she even imagined herself getting up on stage and talking to strangers. So what we had to do was we had to go back to that child when she made that decision that, strangers are scary. And we did a lot of work around that. And then I got her into the future. And I said, I want you now that you've gotten rid of that old program, I want you now to stand up on a stage and look at all those wonderful people. And she could see them, and she was doing a talk. I think it was to 2,000 people. So I said to her, "Look, there'll probably be 3 rows, and you'll see an enormous amount of people at the front. The lights will be in your eyes, so you'll only see a portion of the audience. You won't see them all, and you'll just look at that audience, but look at their smiles. Look how wonderfully they are anticipating all that incredible knowledge that you have that can really help their lives, and begin to feel that resonance in your heart." And so she could feel this resonance in her heart. She said, "Oh, my heart is calmed." But she said, it's still beating fast, but she said, it's excitement. She said, that same beat that used to be fear is now excitement. And I said, that's right. And I said, so now begin to get a sense of your gut brain, how willing it is to allow your heart to shine and connect to your head brain and be able to remember everything that you had to say to these wonderful people and allow yourself to now shine. And she was glowing. Her face was glowing. She had a big smile on her face. And she now is a professional speaker, and she's been on speaker circuit for many, many years now. But it's usually very simple. It's usually something from childhood mostly, like 0 to 7, we call the imprint period. And 0 to 7, we're just a sponge. Whatever mum says, whatever dad says, whatever uncle, aunt, others say that are older than us, we just believe. We just go, yeah, sure. My parents used to always tell me how poor they were. And I just believed that right up until 40. I really struggled financially right up until 40. And then I learnt neuro-linguistic programming and untrained my brain. And all of a sudden, my annual income turned into my monthly income. And I went, wow. And I couldn't shut up about it. I just wanted to tell everybody that their life can be exactly as they want it to be. And so I wrote a book called A Richer Way to Think. It became a bestseller, and my business went crazy because people said, show me how to do that. Show me how to untrain my brain. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I can tell you an experience that I had last week. Um, I was feeling some kind of uncomfort in my heart. No, it was like I woke up shivering, and I start asking, why am I shivering? What's happening? And what conversations did I had the past days that make me feel like this? So that's when one of the things that start checking your what are you thinking and what are you doing, right? What is this? I call it in chapter 11 of my book, the stories you're telling yourself. What story am I telling myself? And I couldn't find I watched that workshop of prosperity in of Louis Hay, and suddenly what came up to my awareness is that I am afraid to do things because I'm afraid people will take it away from me. So I probably in childhood I have some opportunities like that, but I had in my adulthood not long ago that I lost everything, that they took the business away, the family away, I was everything. So betrayal, no big betrayal. So
Mm.
it's like, okay, so why am I afraid that people will take things away from me? Okay, so it's the I didn't do it as profound as you, but I started with the affirmation. Oh, yeah, they took that away. That was thank you for protecting me, right? I know that that happened to me, and you're protecting me. Thank you very much. But now I'm divinely guided and protected, and everything is working for my highest good. So everything that will happen is for my highest good. So is the repetition of the retraining of the thought, right? Is it's not as deep as you do it, like going to the past. But yes, it makes completely sense that some things that don't talk to strangers, but when we are supposed to talk to strangers, they don't give us that flip. No, yes, they are protecting us. And our brain keeps protecting us. It's a stranger, don't talk. It's a stranger, talk because that the danger is there. So yes, it makes a lot of sense. Um, it's more popular, let's say. It's more probability that it will happen in the first 7 years or even in your adolescence than in the oldest year. But if it happens, and I think that happened, that I'm still looking for that in my childhood, when it happens in the latest years of your adulthood, is because it's making you aware of something that happened to you in your childhood, but didn't have the tools to deal with it. That is coming back to you in order to, now it's time for you to deal with it. And I can tell you that in next days, it was like, I'm doing here, I'm preparing. I even looked before the pandemic, the how much I was doing. I was rechecking all my papers, and what happened after. No, that it's what happened after that they took everything from me that didn't happen before. So it was the before and after. It,
It's an interesting point, though, that you were talking about. It is essentially flipping it. Absolutely. And one of the things that is really important that people often forget is that everything that you've lost, and we've all lost things, we've all
Mhm.
lost love, we've all lost money, we've all lost possessions and positions and all sorts of things. But the thing that people often forget is that you are the creator of these things. Even though people can take things away from you, the thing that they can never take away from you is the power that you have within yourself to create these things. It's a little bit like someone coming into your home and stealing your possessions or money. That person is very limited in their thinking. They think the only way they can get what you've got is to steal it from you. But they can actually have everything you have if they listen to you and learn the knowledge that you've gained in order to achieve those things.
Yes, that reminds me a story that I was framed, what it's called framed, and accused of something I didn't do. And I had to be in front of a court and a judge, um, and I remember that I had my my mentor told me, just you go into the room and you say um, power and grace. You keep telling yourself power and grace, power and grace. And I remember even telling the judge at the end, listen, you can take my freedom, you can take my house, you can take everything that you want. There is one thing you cannot take from me, that is my dignity. And that my dignity is what will make me move forward despite anything that happened here. So it's like holding up to that power that you say, that I can create it again, this is me, I know what I have, I'm very grateful, and I can create everything again. And as a fact, it happened. As a fact, it happened in a different way, with a different way of thinking, because I used to work in security, and in security, when everything is protection, everything is to take care of, is closing doors with padlocks, with doors, with closing, protecting,
It's all
to
about insecurity.
insecurity, to make people feel safe.
Mm.
Maybe it's for me to feel safe, okay? And then the universe takes everything away from me. So I go 180 degrees to open minds and hearts to make people feel safe. But that's the way I came back, not protecting, but opening hearts and mind to have hope and faith in a lot of things, in order that I don't need to protect. I'm not afraid of people taking me things from me, right? Now that I'm talking to you, I'm coming to that. I was afraid before that I need to lock, and I need locks, I need doors, I need fences, I need guns, I need vests, no, whatever, all the security that is around
Yeah.
for people not to take it from me. And once I released it, it was taken anyway, for me to live and understand and learn that nobody can take anything from me. Everything is mine. Okay? Everything that I have inside me is my self respect, is my self esteem, is what I have between my ears, I used to say, is mine. I'm the only one that knows how it works. And the connection with the heart, right? That you say. And then now I can tell about the intuition, that it's the God. I call it intuition, but it's the God, what yes and what no. So it's the lessons that the universe bring, taking away things from me in order to be aware that nothing can be taken if I
It's a
don't
little bit,
even if I don't allow it.
yeah, I guess the way that I often see that, it's something I've come to understand. I wrote a book many years ago called Raw Courage, and it was about the courageous piece. It was how do you build courage in your body enough to be able to do the things that you really want to do? And the one particular theme that just kept coming up as I was writing this book is that I notice from a lot of case histories that people who have fear, what happens is they're running away from something. That's what fear often is. Rather than running towards something, they're running away from something. And when you have fear, fear will always chase you. It will be your shadow and it will always chase you. But it's a little bit like once you stop that neurological pattern, and that's literally all it is. It's a bunch of neurons that are all firing off and wiring off together that create the illusion of fear. And when you stand up to fear and you face it, the first thing that we are often going to do is we're going to get angry at fear or we're going to get aggressive at fear. But I believe that what we need to do is recognize it and make fear your friend and say, look, it's okay. I know you're trying to keep me safe and I know you're part of my ego. But the truth is, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not scared. I feel the beat in my heart. And my beat in my heart is just telling me, pay a little bit more attention. That's all. And that's all it's asking me to do. But what we do is we overinflame it.
Mm-hmm.
In our public speaking course, I often say to our students, you're going to have a pumpkin and a pea. You want the pumpkin to be in your heart and the pea to be in your gut. You don't want the pumpkin in your gut and the pea to be in your heart. You want your purpose for speaking to be more important than the fear to stop you. And when your desire is greater than your fear, you'll achieve anything. You really, really will. And you've got to get that perspective. Because truth is, we all get scared. We all get scared for people, like as a parent. I'm a very courageous person, but if I have any sort of fear, it's usually for my daughters. And, so what am I going to do in that space? I'm not going to keep feeding the fear. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to teach them courage. I've got one of my daughters at the moment reading Raw Courage, and she's getting a lot of benefit from it. She's going, I'm really starting to understand courage and what it is, and now she's doing incredibly courageous things. And it's wonderful to see. It's beautiful to see people when they get to a point of courage and they start stepping out of their fear zone and, just walking towards what they want instead of running away from what they don't.
Yeah. But Rik, it's teaching people to go against what the media feed us with, because the way to control us is through fear. And
Definitely.
it's there in the family, it's there in the religion, it's there in the politics, it's there everywhere. So it's like, and the fear that FOMO, no, fear of missing out, even that it's really an illusion, no, of missing what, that fear, but it's teaching really to retraining, and how you call it, to untrain your brain, that okay, that's protection, but that's not who I am. How they are trying to manipulate me through this. And one of the biggest fear that people, even in talking, that people don't confront and say what they feel and the truth of what they think, is, just correct me if I'm incorrect, it's to be accepted and acknowledged. Is like, I exist, not just to be listen. So people don't confront because the other person can get mad. And really the real fear is that they will disconnect me and reject me, no? The fear of rejection. So it's very interesting, and it's very important, that teaching that you do, that is teaching people to pause and say, hello, fear, you're my friend. I call it in my book the yellow light of the traffic light. No, that's my yellow light, that it's saying just slow down, pay attention. What's the fear? And then you decide if you put it in red or you put it in green. It's your decision. But fear is only the yellow light. No, it's like you say, slow down, stop a little bit, just pay
Yeah.
attention, and then move forward because nothing is going. There is where I really changed. I really flip it from security, from closing to opening. No, it's like whatever you believe you create. If you believe you can, you'll be able to do it. Like Henry Ford said, no, if you believe you cannot do it, so you cannot do it. Your brain will always tell you right. So what are you talking about? What are you saying to yourself? Is fear is a big issue that really is to uh, flip fear into hope, of faith, or give your brain the certainty that you yes can do it.
There's something that you spoke about that I'd just like to focus on, if that's okay, which was that concept of acceptance. And, we talk about the media and we talk about advertising, and we talk about governments and so forth conditioning us. But one of the biggest conditions that we have is the people around us, our family, our friends, because what we tend to do unconsciously is we want to build rapport with people. And what we want to see is, in the Western culture, we want to see nodding of heads when you're talking to people, which is a sign of I'm hearing you, a sign of acceptance. The thing that becomes a bit of a problem is that if you constantly are craving or wishing or wanting acceptance, then what you will do is you will twist or you will condition your thinking to start sounding like everyone else around you. Now,
Correct.
I created a video a little while back why being average is
Average.
pretty average.
It's
And the thing
settling.
is,
It's
well,
settling.
there's a large majority of people that are depressed. There's a large majority of people that are anxious. There is definitely a majority of people that don't like their jobs. 87%, according to a Gallup poll, don't like their jobs. So that is a big problem if you think about it. Like, if you're having a conversation about career or work, you're probably going to be listening to one of those 87% who are going to be telling you all of their beliefs and patterns and all they think about career. The very first question that you should be asking them are you happy in your job? And if they can say yes, they are, then listen to that advice. But in a lot of cases, don't strive for acceptance. Because if we strive for acceptance, what's going to happen is we're going to condition to a norm. We're going to condition to a meme. We're going to condition to a culture. And in a lot of cases, there's a lot of people who just have not got life right. And yet we're willing to ask those people to accept us. And the only way that that's going to happen is if we agree on all our beliefs and agree on how the world works and agree on how our world works. I have come to a point where I've fully accepted that a lot of my ideas are going to really hit people, and confront people at first. But that's where the courage muscle really needs to kick in. That's where we need to be courageous. Like, we have trained our daughters to have their own minds. And although at first as a parent, it was a little bit challenging, hearing some of their, no, I don't want to do that. No, that's not for me. And that was a bit challenging. It is now incredibly liberating as they are now growing into adults. They know their own minds and they realize they are not part of the majority. They are at a different level to many, many people. And you've got to get yourself to a point, like, as you rise up, like if you're financially, in a very low income, You will, it was said many years ago that your income will pretty much match, be the average of the five people that you spend most of your time with. So to rise up to a different level of income, you do have to think differently. And I can remember my journey. I sought out many, many mentors and coaches and people to help me to think differently. And it was challenging. It was really challenging. One of my mentors, he would make between $3 and $6 million in a weekend. And, it was incredible money. And he said to me once, he said, I'll show you how to make an incredible amount of money in a short amount of time. And I could immediately feel my body tensing around that. And I could feel myself feeling a bit anxious. And then there was also that feeling that he was better than me. And so I was there, he was there. And it's my spiritual coach that really helped me to get rid of a lot of that nonsense because now I've worked with film stars, rock stars, very, very wealthy people. And I'm no longer intimidated by them because they are just people just like you and me, but they do think differently. To rise up, you have to be accepting that you've really got to see differently. As you climb that mountain, you can see further, and you must. As a leader, you must be able to see further. But as you climb that mountain, the wind gets stronger. The gradient gets harder. And so you've got to get stronger. You've got to physically, mentally, spiritually get stronger so you can keep coming up that mountain. But once you get to the top of your mountain and you begin to look at the landscape, you will see the world very differently. There was a beautiful piece that I felt is worthy to say in this conversation from Richard Bach, who wrote a beautiful book called Illusions. And at the very beginning, without giving the book away, in case someone wants to read that book, there's a little handwritten piece, and it's about these little creatures that are clinging to a log. And they're in a river, and the current is pushing against them. And then one of the little creatures says to the other, I'm going to let go. I've had enough of this. This is not life. Clinging to this log with all my might against the current, he said, I'm going to let go. And all of the creatures said, you're crazy. You're crazy. You're going to die. The river will take you, it'll smash you against the rocks and you'll drown and you'll be hurt and you'll be dead. And with that, the creature said, but right now, I am dead. I am nothing. I am not living. I am just holding on to my fear. And with that, it just let go. And when it let go, it did get smashed against the rocks. It did go under the water, but eventually it got to a quiet eddy. And then when it got to that quiet eddy, and I'm going to extend the story, when it got to that quiet eddy, it stood up for the very first time and discovered it had legs. And then all of a sudden it felt this feeling on its back, and it intuitively felt to flap these things, and it began to rise higher in the air. And then it looked down at that tiny little log stretching across that river and saw all of its fellows all clinging to life and fear. And it began to see the wonder of, beautiful orchards and fruit and vegetables and food and prosperity everywhere. And sometimes that's what we do. We cling to something that we really should have let go of years ago.
That's beautiful. I was always a rebel since I was a kid. We are 5 brothers and sisters. I'm the youngest, no, I'm the one that opened the door to all the oldest. That reminded me that I had an answer to my mom, a question really to my mom that drove her crazy, because she used to tell me, you should do this and you should do that. Da, da, da. And my answer was, According to whom?
Hmm.
Right? According to
Nice
whom?
response.
So, because according to me, no, right? So it is the according to whom that I still have on that things that we try to fit in as you say, so we keep ourselves in the average to be acceptance, and then they start calling me crazy. And at the beginning, I got really mad when people called me crazy. But afterwards, I flip it. And I was really proud of people telling me crazy because for me, it was really saying how wise I am. Let's say I call it. So I said, "Oh, thank you very much that you called me crazy." How come? I says, because I am doing things that a lot of people want to do and nobody dares. So it means that I'm not that crazy. I'm have a lot of courage. That's different. But so thank you for thinking I'm crazy. I assume the role. I like it, and it's so much um, lighter and so much nicer when I accept myself and the, let's say, and the adjective they're putting on me, right? So is what you're saying, the let go of what, of that fear, of that imagination of the worst that can happen. So um one of these sentences that I had when I was going through the trial, it was just prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And the prepare for the worst, it was, okay, jail. Okay, so I went to jail to teach, so I can see the jail from inside. So I have plan B already, so I take all the fear out. And that's to confront, really, to see. And conversations, as you say, examples for example for that came to my mind is when with my husband we have some conversations that we have very different opinions, and so it's like, okay, we agree that we disagree. And that's it. No, we agree to disagree. And sometimes I add, and this is my story and I'm sticking to it. Okay, because, okay, you can think that way, I can think that way. We both will get to where we want. So it's really nice to see how we are people and there is no up and, okay, we all go to the toilet. That's my visual, no? We all do the same, take our pants down and go to the toilet. So yeah, at that level, yes, some people have more power, some people have more money. Doesn't mean that they are more than me. I have more other things, and sometimes compassion, sometimes empathy, sometimes who knows. This is me, and it's really interesting, this conversation. It has been with a lot of insights. So, if you would go to your teenager, what would you tell him to allow himself to do that he didn't do before?
Mm. I think if I could talk to my teenager, I would say to my teenager, go and learn how to master your mind now. Don't wait until many, many, many years have passed and you've had a lot of disappointments and you've had a lot of challenges. Those challenges will disappear. Go learn now. Learn how to master your mind now. I mean, we go to drive and we have to study and we have to learn the rules and we have to get into a car and we have to learn how to drive the thing. And there's a rule book and there are road laws. There are things that we have to learn to do. And there's so much emphasis put on driving your car. But not once, even through your entire education through school, which is all about learning, you are never, ever once taught how to learn. You are
Don't
not
you
even,
think that's my wish. That's really my desire. It's to get into the high school age, even 12 years old, and teach them how the mind works
yes,
and how they can control. I can tell you, and that's beautiful what you just said. Beautiful. I can tell you that I did when I was 14 years old with a group of classmates. We went to Silva Mind Control at that time. And
oh yes, I remember Silver.
I can tell you that that saved my life. Really, I that became that I'm not so afraid. I can deal with things. I can confront. I can study. I can program myself. And I can see my desire ending, and then do uh, reverse engineering, like you did with the girl in the stage, to see it to completely. And I really agree with you. To the teenager, that's the main thing. I would really love that they will teach in, I don't know, 10th grade, ninth grade, how to manage, how to empower yourself and manage your head. This world will be completely different at that
I
at that
I
stage.
completely agree. Over the years, I remember there was one particular gentleman who came into our neuro-linguistic programming course, and he doubled his income. And he was amazed that he had had such a limitation on his income. And, and he just got so excited. He said, I'm bringing my entire family into this course. And he did. One by one, his children came into the course. And we started to get kids, younger kids coming into the course. And, our youngest at the time was 16, and then we got a 14-year-old, then we got a 12-year-old. And it was incredible watching, particularly the teenagers, watching how they grew and how they matured so much in such a very short space of time. And I really think that learning the craft of managing your brain and managing your emotional state and all the stuff that you learn with NLP, and there's a lot of communication skills as well that help to build people's confidence. And that was the thing that it really did for me, besides increasing my income dramatically, which was the thing that you've got to understand is not everyone goes into NLP to increase their income. It was just I came from a very poor family and I had poor belief systems that were limiting my income ability, which was my biggest frustration at the time. But learning how to master my mind has been massively helpful because typically, when you're about to do anything that really scares you, the first place that you're going to go is into overthinking. And, if you can manage that overthinking, it's going to help you to move into those, new career opportunity, new relationship that you have, or, a new acquisition that you're making, or going into a completely new area that you've never been in before. Your unconscious mind is, and particularly your ego more so, is going to warn you, is going to send up, as your analogy, the red light, and you want to click that over into at least the amber or the green, so you can move forward. And I think mastering your mind is probably the number one thing that we should be doing in this world. And I know should sounds like it's certainly my values speaking, but I've
I
just
agree
seen,
with you. I
yeah, I've
agree.
just seen such incredible benefit,
Yeah, I
such
agree with you.
incredible benefit.
It really saved my life. It really saved my life of being bullied and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, that you protect yourself and you start believing in yourself, and especially in the power you have, because at that time teenagers and kids think, okay, kids, we think we can do everything. We are not that limitation, but as a teenager is the time that we want to be, that you check everything when you want to be independent and you don't know where you are and you're really confused, and that tool of managing your mind is, it blows away your world. What, you have no limitations again. You can do whatever
Absolutely.
you can do whatever you want. So it has been such a nice and learning experience to have this conversation with you, Rik. And in one word, what would you take from this conversation?
Courage. I think what we've
Courage.
been talking about a lot
Yeah.
today has really been courage. Brain would be the other word, but courage, yeah.
Yes, courage.
Maybe
I
the
like, yeah,
the courage to do good things.
courage to do good things. Is there anything else you would like to say before I tell our audience where to find you and how to connect with you?
I would like to say if you're listening to this right now and you've heard a lot of what we've been talking about, I'd really encourage you to be courageous, to go out and dream big and do those things that are in your heart. But one little piece that I'd like to give you, I used to believe that my purpose was my purpose. It was for me. But eventually you'll get to a point that you begin to realize that all our purpose is really to help others. That's really when purpose finds its greatest heights. When you can put your purpose into the population and you can serve other people. If you have an incredible skill, it's almost your right to go out there and use that skill to help other people to help themselves.
Beautiful. That's a, um, I say that we heal ourselves when we heal others. It's when we heal ourselves. Like the teachers
So
learn
true.
more than when they teach, but when we heal others, really we are healing ourselves. Is the real, is that's the real thing. Thank you very much, Rik, and those the audience. You can find Rik Schnabel in livebeyondlimits.com.au, Australia. And you can find him in any of his books, A Richer Way to Think, Seven Beliefs That Will Change Your Life, Roar, Courage from Fear to Fearless, The Life Coach Millionaires, 5 to Thrive, The Life Coach and NLP Practitioner Trainer Manual. So you have a lot of ways where to find Rik and really learn his mind and really change your life. And thank you, Rik, for sharing your heart, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing all your time with us. And for people that are listening to us, just I encourage, that's the word today, encourage you to allow yourself to be you, to take your space, to trust yourself, and really be the person that you meant to be, and be in service and in purpose and feel in peace and fulfilled. So thank you very much, Rik, and we'll see you later.